This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News. News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Good evening, boys and girls, scholars and laymen, for another wonderful edutainment edition of The Artivist Thinks. I'm your host for the empowerment segment, Brother Ron, also known as R2, C2, H2, The Artivist. Thank you so much for supporting this movement, because information is power, like Baba Dick Gregory says. Good information is good power. Bad information is bad power, but like I say, knowledge is the currency of the universe, family. Once again, knowledge is the currency of the universe. And today or tonight or whatever, I'd like to address the recent sentencing of Dylann Roof to death by a jury made up of mostly women, which was I think 10 women and two males sentenced Dylann Roof to death, to the death penalty on today, which is January 10th, 2017. 2017 is the year of the risk taker, so take advantage. I like to say this thing about the Dylann Roof case and about some other things surrounding it. Like I'm telling people right now, when you become a student of history, you become the master of your destiny. Once again, when you become a student of history, you become the master of your destiny. And I've been saying this since 2015, and I want to say it again because true learning is repetition. You keep on saying it, keep on doing it until you get it. Get it? You keep on saying, you keep on doing until you get it. Get it? Okay. So I want to say once again, Dylann Roof. Dylann Roof is responsible. He's been found responsible by a U.S. court of law of killing 9 black folks doing Bible study at Mother Emmanuel A.M.E. Church in the heart of Charleston, South Carolina. That's Charleston, South Carolina. That happened June 17th, 2015. June 17th, 2015. June 17th, 2015, during what is known as the Juneteenth celebration. That's when the enslaved Africans in Galveston, Texas found out that they were free. Right after the Civil War, it took them to June of 1865 to find out that they were free, although the Civil War was over April of 1865, supposedly. And I say all this to say that Charleston is also the place where the Civil War began. More specifically, Fort Sumter was in the Charleston Harbor. It began April 12th, 1861. That's where the Civil War began. And I say all this to say, let's get back to Dylann Roof. We all know now that he is held responsible for the killing of 9 black folks doing Bible study at Mother Emmanuel, A.M.E. Where did they catch Dylann Roof? And why is that so important? Well, they caught Dylann Roof at Shelby, North Carolina. They caught him in Shelby, North Carolina. They took him to Burger King for, I guess, a job well done. I don't know. Why would you take anybody like that to Burger King? But here's the thing. The significance, location. The place where Dylann Roof was caught is the birthplace of Thomas Dixon Jr. Once again, the place where Dylann Roof was caught after killing those people was Shelby, North Carolina, the birthplace of Thomas Dixon Jr. Who is Thomas Dixon Jr.? Well, he was a revered lecturer, a religious leader. He actually was a minister, a Baptist minister who was very popular on the East Coast back at the turn of the 20th century. He was a prolific playwright and author, book writer. He was his dear friend, Woodrow Wilson, future president of the United States. He was his dear best friend when they were schoolmates at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland, or Tubman City, whatever you want to call it. They were actually classmates. And also he's the author of a novel known as The Klansman, which D.W. Griffith, the Hollywood visionary, translated into the epic and controversial movie known as The First Birth of a Nation, which led to the rebirth of the Ku Klux Klan in 1915 in Stone Mountain, Georgia. You know, the rebirth of the Klan was inspired by the movie D.W. Griffith's classic Birth of a Nation, which was adapted from Thomas Dixon's novel The Klansman. And 2015 was the 100th anniversary of the Birth of a Nation movie, which was screened at the White House by Thomas Dixon's former classmate, Woodrow Wilson. To paraphrase Wilson, he said it was as if writing history with lightning, because it was so-called accurate. So I say all this to say, look that up, take a look. It's all online. And also, January 11th marks the birthday of Thomas Dixon. He was born actually on January 11th. He was born January 11, 1864, in Shelby, North Carolina, and he died April 3rd, 1946. So he was born January 11, 1864 in Shelby, North Carolina, and he died April 3rd, 1946. Why is that significant? Because Dylann Roof was born April 3rd, 1994. And April is an interesting month for white supremacy. It's like it's white supremacy blood sacrifice month or history month, because like a lot of valid things against people of color tend to happen in the month of April for some reason. And a lot of significant dates in white supremacist history is in April as well. For example, like I told you, the Civil War was started April 12th, 1861. Like I said, like I said before, Adolf Hitler, leader of the Nazis, so-called Antichrist, was born April 20th, 1889. That's April 20th, 1889. Tim McVeigh allegedly blew up the Oklahoma Federal Building April 19th, 1995. Then you had the Rodney King riots that happened in April. You had the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, which happened April 4th, 1968. You had the mysterious death of Dr. King's contemporary, Representative Reverend Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who died 4 years later, April 4th, 1972. You also have the Walter Scott shooting, which takes place in North Charleston, South Carolina, April 4th, 2015. You also have, I'm currently working on my We All Be group. The Fort Pillow Massacre was also happened during the Civil War, April 12th, 1864, when you had the leader of the Confederate forces and future first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, notorious slave trader General Nathan Bedford Forrest, basically attacked a Fort Pillow in Henning, Tennessee, where Alice Haley is from, the guy known for Roots and Malcolm X. He basically attacked it, a fort guarded by black Union soldiers who tried to surrender, but he told his man no quarter, so he ended up killing over 300 black Union soldiers, including black women and children. And you can find the primary sources for these things online, because the U.S. Congress, who wanted to charge Nathan Bedford Forrest on war crimes, interviewed the survivors, the witnesses, and participants in the Fort Pillow Massacre. So I'm just naming just a few events that happened in April that's tied to white supremacy, racism. But I say all this to say, Dylann Roof, of course, like I said earlier, was born April 3rd, 1994. Thomas Dixon Jr. died April 3rd, 1946. The guy who created the book, The Klansman, which led to the movie Birth of a Nation, directed by D.W. Griffith, and also led to the recreation or the rebirth of the Ku Klux Klan a little bit over 100 years ago. So I repeat this, because I said, learning is repetition. You say until you get it, and you try until you get it. You keep on doing those things. That's how you learn. Because I said this almost 2 years ago. I just wanted to just clarify that once again, because they were not talk about this in the so-called mainstream news or even fake news that they propagate. They would never talk about these things. And I would now hold my breath, wait for them to talk about these things. Now you get to Charleston, South Carolina. Charleston is interesting in itself because there was summertime and the living is easy. Your daddy rich and your mother's good looking. You got poor getting best, but also 40% of the enslaved Africans that came to this place called America, to this experiment known as America, came through Charleston Harbor. So every black person in America probably got relatives from Charleston or from South Carolina. So South Carolina is interesting because I got this my own scaredy Negro meter. And some of the most scaredy folks I ever met, some of the most scaredy black folks, Mr. Boss Charlie, Boss Charlie, Mr. Boss Charlie folks I met in Charleston and South Carolina. No disrespect to South Carolina, but some of the most scared Negroes I have ever met in my life reside in South Carolina. And I'm from Memphis, so I know about scaredy Negroes because, you know, they killed the king here, Dr. King, because of scaredy Negroes. And that's another video altogether. And now you got a lot of videos about the Dr. King assassination that deals with those issues. But a lot of Boss Charlie Negroes down there. Boss, man, what we gonna do, boss? But really, that's black America right now. What, boss, man, please, boss, what we gonna do, boss? I mean, the ship be sinking, boss. So anyway, jokes aside, Charleston is very historical because Mother Emanuel is also is a very significant church in and of itself because the founders, one of the founders of Mother Emanuel, A.M.E. was the brother Dylann Vesey. Dylann Vesey was straight up revolutionary. He put the fear in white folks, right? And he helped found that church. And that church had to go underground because of white supremacy, racism. Because white folks got this fascination with attacking the black church. And 2015 proved for a banner year for attacking the black church. Not since the 90s where they were burning black churches, and not since the 60s, you go back to the Four Little Girls. But a lot of significant things happened at the black church back in 2015 that was really on the radar for a lot of us. You think about, for example, Sandra Bland was arrested and brutalized on the property of a black church. Research that. She actually was arrested and brutalized and disrespected. And then 48 hours or whatever later, she was dead. 72 hours, whatever, she's dead. But she was arrested and attacked by white supremacy on church grounds. You go to Memphis back in July of 2015, you had a black male, a black teenage male named Darius Stewart, who was basically, from my understanding, I don't understand how this worked, he was a passenger doing a traffic stop. The cop allowed the driver to leave, and he basically takes Darius Stewart to black church grounds to assault him and then kill him. And he got away with it. This guy was named Schilling. Schilling, that's his name, last name, Schilling. I got videos about that as well. But he had a couple things that happened in black church. Even Ferguson, a couple of black churches caught on fire. There's a lot of crazy stuff that's been going on with black churches. Black churches been on attack for some reason. But the black churches have always been on attack. But Mother Emanuel had to go underground for years because of white supremacy hate. After the Dylann Vesey thing, they really had to, hide while they was worshiping. So this is fascinating. And Charleston and South Carolina is interesting because, like I said, I met some scaredy Negroes there, but also a lot of revolutionary brothers and sisters came out of South Carolina. Like even July 10th, 2015, when they took down the Confederate flag from the state capitol grounds in South Carolina, the news talking about this and that. And this was, I guess, in response to what happened to Mother Emanuel. And it's kind of interesting how, what happened to Mother Emanuel ended up turning to an issue about Confederate memorials and flags. See how that works? Who creates the agenda for us to feed into and to follow and to manifest? You see how it works, y'all? You see what Brother Malcolm was talking about, how the media is the most powerful force on the planet because it influences and controls the minds of the masses? Who was putting that together? How come they're not putting what I said out there together about Dylann Roof going to pay homage to a white supremacist, Thomas Dixon, in his birthplace? This is where he got caught at. Look all this up. I'm not making this stuff up. So it's funny now the verdict of him getting a death penalty occurred on January 10th on the eve of Thomas Dixon's birthday, which is January 11th. You know, just like the Oklahoma City bombing occurred on April 19th on the eve of Adolf Hitler's birthday. You see how it works, y'all? You see how it works? I don't know. But I say all this to say, I think it's very important because people will look at some place like South Carolina as a backwater when it's one of the original 13 colonies. It's a financial stronghold because North Carolina is the home of Bank of America. That's their headquarters in North Carolina. And we know what happened in Charlotte last year. But that's a foothold. But everything that go down in South Carolina has an effect on the country. For example, back in the 1850s, it was South Carolina Representative Preston Brooks who beat the hell out of U.S. Senator from Massachusetts, Charles Sumner. Beat him so bad with a cane, they took Charles Sumner 3 years to recover. He almost died. Beat him up just for saying something verbally. Charles Sumner was a radical Republican. He was one of the folks that advocated for black folks to get the 40 acres and the mule. As a matter of fact, the first black high school for black people west of the Mississippi River in St. Louis was named for him, Sumner High School, which gave us people like Dick Gregory. You see how it works? So Preston Brooks, a representative from South Carolina, beat the hell out of Charles Sumner on the floor of the House and almost killed this man. That's 4 years before the Civil War. You know, and Dylann Roof is fascinating. He didn't have the courage to kill himself, but he killed a lot of innocent folks, and he said they were innocent. He never shed a tear. What I'm interested in is that, you know, black people, not saying all black people, but it's funny how we can forgive somebody like Dylann Roof, but yet we want to demonize the 4 black Chicago youths who unfortunately made a bad decision in beating up the mentally challenged white man. Now, my problem is not, you know, it was wrong, but here's the thing. Like, people are willing to throw away black people for, like, beating up somebody in a savage way, of course, you know, very vicious, but the white man did not lose his life, whereas this white boy come into a Bible study class and sit down with these people for an hour, and then all of a sudden he said, I'm gonna kill everybody or try to kill everybody in the room. Okay, that sounds kind of peculiar. It sounds kind of strange, but black folks are willing to forgive. He did not ask for forgiveness. Even in his own words, he basically said, I don't, you know, he's not seeking no forgiveness from anybody. All right, he did what he wanted to do. I think he was trying to, he defended himself doing the sentencing part. He gave a 5-minute response saying, I guess he wanted life in prison, but they give him the death penalty. And really, the death penalty, especially the federal death penalty, only 3 folks have been put to death since they reinstated the federal death penalty. One of them was Tim McVeigh. I think Tim McVeigh actually begged to be put to death or something like that. He didn't want life in prison. I could be wrong. We look it up. He's looked it up, y'all. But 3 folks have been put to death since the death penalty at the federal level was reinstated back, I believe, in 1988. So really, being put to death federally is just a life sentence. Like, Dylann Roof could possibly be on death row for 30 plus years before he actually is put to death. And by that time, a lot of the victim family have been, you know, maybe met their reward. My problem with being put to death is basically that everybody got to die. So how is being put to death a punishment? Think about what I'm saying. If I got to die, anyway, if all of us got to die, if none of us can escape death, how is that really a punishment? And then you think about this, he waited on death row for so long. There are a lot of people who were victims, the victim's family, a lot of them will pass on within 30 or 40 years. So, you know, see how it works. This is just a just us system. It's not a justice system. It's a legal system. There's a difference between a legal system and a justice system. So I'm saying all this to say is that people, you know, this is interesting. The Civil War never ended. Let me say this once more time. One more again. The Civil War has never ended. Just like slavery has never ended. We still got private prisons. The 13th Amendment provided a loophole for punishment, you know, using slavery as punishment for crimes, so-called crimes. And a lot of our crimes as black people is being born black or being born and categorized as being so-called black people. That's really the sin. It's the sin in my skin. What did I do to be so black and blue? Okay, just challenging a little bit of Louis. But anyway, sometimes you gotta be a little bit off. You gotta be a little bit creatively maladjusted. I consider myself one of the creatively maladjusted people. Like Dr. King said, it's the creatively maladjusted people are the ones who save humanity. Or like George Bernard Shaw said about the unreasonable man. It takes the unreasonable man to save the world. Because anything less is just uncivilized. But anyway. Whoo! But, you know, could the alt-right use a Dylann Roof as their John Brown? Now, that's something I've been thinking about, too. Could the alt-right use a Dylann Roof as their John Brown? Now, John Brown is a hero to a lot of black people. A lot of black people love John Brown for the stance he took against slavery, against this white supremacist system. He actually forfeited his white privilege in order to fight for black liberation. He actually forfeit his white privilege. That's what I'm saying. Like when I say white people are racist, this is not about, you know, you being mean or nasty or vicious. It's about you as a racist. You accept privileges that keep you at a high level that benefits you at the expense of people who are not classified as white. See, I separate the difference between a racist and a white supremacist all day long, because I think black folks must take responsibility and create a context and learn how to leverage the language to work for our benefit when we tell our narratives. Just like white folks, they'll take any word, they know the original meaning of the word, and they misconstrue it to fit whatever they want it to fit. And we as black folks must learn how to use their language against them as well. Like lawyers and legalese and all that stuff. We must learn how to do these things. We must learn how to tell our stories. We must stop waiting for white folks' approval. We don't need the white savior in our movies or in our lives. Period. We don't need a white savior no more. We don't need another hero. Some shit like that. Tina Turner, Mad Max. But we don't need one of those no more. It's on us to liberate ourselves. John Brown could not liberate us. He could not free us. You must free yourself. You must believe in thyself, do for self, and free thyself. So the Dylann Roof, that's another thing about the Dylann Roof thing, is that they act like he was such a lone roof. Dylann Roof was not created in a vacuum. Neither was John Wilkes Booth. Neither was Tim McVeigh. Neither was Lee Harvey Oswald. Name who you want to name. None of them came out from vacuum. They was created. They are a product of this system. Like in New Jack City, you know, you want to take down Nino Brown. It's not Nino Brown that's the problem. It's the system that produces the Nino Browns, the Al Capones, the John Dillingers. Deal with the root. You got to become more radicalized. We as black people, and I speak for myself. I ain't gonna speak for all black, but I'm gonna say this. It'd be best if we embrace the idea of becoming more radicalized in the way we approach problem solving. Because be radical is to deal with the root. And it's more important that we become, like I said, students of history, so we become masters of our destiny in order to deal with these issues and come up with some very creative solutions. And also tap into our creativity. Our God-given creativity will save us from our misery. We don't have to be put in this situation. Everything we do is a choice. And people say, no, it's not. Yes, it is. You could choose to go along. You could choose to go with the wind or go against the grain. The choice is yours. Be willing to own the consequences of your actions. That's all it takes to be anybody. To be free, you know, freedom has obligations. That means you must be free to do as you want, but also be free and be willing to accept the consequences of being free. And that's a beautiful thing. We also want to be liberated, you know, but I could see them using Dylann Roof as a martyr for the white supremacist cause, for the alt-right cause. Easily, he could be their John Brown, because John Brown, he killed some people. Let's not act like he didn't kill anybody. John Brown killed some people. Him and his sons killed some people, right? And under questionable circumstances, okay? But like Colin Powell said so many years ago on the morning show, he said, when you go to war, you call off civilization. When you go to war, you call off civilization. So John Brown, the first person they killed at Harper's Ferry, was a free black man. So does that disqualify John Brown from being a black hero or somebody that black folks love and admire? Not according to Dick Gregory, not according to a lot of people, okay? But the first black person killed at Harper's Ferry was a free black man, okay? So, I mean, let's learn this history, right? With Dylann Roof, he got that Patrick Henry mindset. Give me liberty or give me death, right? See, a lot of us don't want to put nothing on the line. It's like Brother Malcolm X said, there's no such thing as a bloodless revolution. There will be blood. That's the price you pay for dealing in revolution. And a lot of us want to get it. We want to pray our way out of it. We want a cosmic bailout. We want some Jesus figure to come back. Ain't going to happen, black people. We must do for self, be thyself, do for self, and free thyself. That's what we need to practice. And if you're not ready to do what it takes to get freedom, like Brother Malcolm said, get the word freedom out your vocabulary. You know, we all scared and it's like that. I mean, it's this really vicious cycle when victims continue to blame victims for a system that's causing all the misery. It's really messed up. We gotta really think about this when we are blaming victims. When victims are blaming victims for a system that's causing all their problems. You know, like black folks got this thing now. You know, we see the movie Fences and all this other even empire. We got to deal with mental illness in the black community. We got to deal with mental illness in the black community. What's causing the ills, baby? What's the root of the cause of the ills? Because of everything else, you're just treating the symptoms. You can't use Robitussin when you got pneumonia. Shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna use some Tussin. That Robitussin, you got pneumonia, nigga. But the Tussin though. You can't use that. You need stronger medication. And really, we need a dose of real reality. You know, and we got to understand this. Well, Dylann Roof, there are many Dylann Roofs waiting to go off. Many Manchurian candidate MK Ultra puppets like Dylann Roof waiting to go off, to set it off. Race soldiers, you know, everything with white supremacy is warfare. All areas of human activity is warfare. Make no mistake about it. So black folks, we are in a bad bind when we depend on our enemies for food, for education, for medicine, and for knowledge of self. We are really in a bad bind right now as black people. And a lot of us ain't going to make it because we got that mentality. Because we can't even forgive ourselves. Like, you know, a lot of us, man, I seen on social media about the 4 black Chicago teenagers. People, man, we're like, you know, pitchforks and shit. They treat like they Frankenstein. But they the monsters that society created. It's like what Tupac said, the great Tupac on Thug Life. The hell you give little infants fucks everybody. Once again, the hell you give little infants fucks everybody. You want to blame Frankenstein when it's Dr. Frankenstein that created the monsters. So who is Dr. Frankenstein? Ask ourselves these questions. When I hear people talking about, well, these young people lost their mind, they wilding out. Why? They rebelling. They are rebelling against a system that does not respect their humanity. Of course they wilding out and acting a fool. And then a lot of us, it's not, you know, I say us like I created all this. I'm not even 40 yet. Okay, I created Ron, brother Ron did all this. No, I'm saying that's because the ones who want the responsibility, who want to be held accountable, try to make things better, we got to deal with that. Because a lot of these kids are just soldiers looking for generals. They're looking for blueprints. They're looking for all this stuff. But a lot of stuff you cannot deal with in front of a camera. Cause that is really just posing. This is just infotainment for y'all. A lot of y'all ain't gonna take this seriously. And it's very serious. Sometimes you gotta laugh to keep from crying. That's what black folks are good at. You know, entertainers ain't revolutionary. They could be innovative, but they ain't revolutionary. You know what I'm saying? You know, Louis Armstrong ain't gonna be no tank blowing his trumpet. You know, Sammy Davis ain't gonna be tap dancing, you know what I'm saying, on the front lines. You know what I'm saying? Different things. And we gotta stop this. And we gotta love ourselves enough to say enough is enough. Let's pull away from what's killing us. Cause you can't call asthma hereditary if you live in Richmond, California, where you got the Chevron oil refinery creating generations of kids with asthma. White supremacy is hereditary. Yes, I guess it's hereditary. Because black folks been dealing with white supremacy for centuries and it's been causing all types of illness in the black community. Physical, spiritual, and mental. So you gotta figure out what's really ailing us, making us ill, because we headed for self-destruction. And the beautiful thing about it is, Black folks can't really become extinct. Blessing and a curse. We can't become extinct. I say all this to say because white supremacists have been trying their darndest to get rid of black folks. They might be able to get rid of like other animals in the animal kingdom, but they not get rid of black people. We the original people. You know, we melanin tough, melanin strong, and we got that DNA. You know, for example, you know, you start the Planned Parenthood for whatever reason. One of the reasons of Planned Parenthood was to limit the size of the black population. We can't get around that. We got to stop lying to ourselves. One of the reasons Margaret Sanger started Planned Parenthood was to limit the size of the black population. Now you got a situation in 2017, you got more white folks dying than reproducing. Just like with the war on drugs, when Richard Nixon gave us affirmative action, he also gave us the war on drugs. The war on drugs is meant to undermine and disenfranchise black people. But guess what? The highest number of OD cases or drug overdose cases are from the white community. Just like, you know, people talking about black welfare queens and whatnot. White folks are the biggest welfare queens on the planet because they started welfare all that to benefit white people, not to benefit black people. You know, black folks needed welfare ever since we got here. Now we've been catching was hell. Hellfare, not welfare, hellfare. That's what black folks been catching. So even affirmative action benefited, historically speaking, white women more than any other group. And our white women were really minorities. Some people argue that white women are the bottom bitch of the white man, who's the biggest pimp on the planet. You know, Malcolm Alden, and the biggest pimp on the planet is the white man. And his woman is his bottom bitch. That's his honor. You know, people, oh, that's atrocious. It's atrocious when you mislead my people by design to hate themselves, not knowing that they really are great. They forgot that they knew that they knew. That's what bothers me more than anything. But nothing really bothers me now because I know my marching orders. You know, blessed be to the ancestors, the right ancestors, not the wrong ancestors, but the right one. And you live in your purpose, things begin to happen. I mean, I'm still trying to get used to the idea of people knowing who I am, walking around. I mean, not just in Memphis, but Brooklyn or Kansas City. Even got Africans from Africa knowing who I am in Kansas City. You know, going different places and being brother around. We really thank you for what you're doing. Sending emails, texts, letters, written letters, phone calls, voice messages. I really appreciate all that energy, family, but we got a long way to go. I'm in it for the long haul. I am a soldier in America's longest running war. And if the ones that know, the ones that don't know, don't worry about it, you know. Because the ones that know, they get it. The ones that don't know may never get it. And it's all right. Everything is all right in the world. But that Dylann Roof piece, I think it was very important for me to tell y'all that about Dylann Roof and about the situation in Charleston. You know, Charleston gave us Porgy and Bess. I made fun of that a little bit. Charleston is culturally rich, but it's really like Memphis. It's a plantation town. Whereas you got this white daddy complex, right? White daddy need to bail us out. You know, America would not have no identity without the African. I mean, nothing in America is absent from the influence and the fingerprints of the African. You understand? Like Brother Randy Weston, who's almost 100 years old, the jazz master, the guru, whose mentors were both Thelonious Monk and Langston Hughes, right? Langston Hughes had it in his will that Randy Weston had to play his funeral and get paid union wage, union scale. That's who Randy Weston is, this humble African giant in the middle of Brooklyn. He told me America is Africa. Without Africa, there is no America. And I'm not going to get into all this stuff. I know people want to talk about, you know, what people talk about, you know what I'm talking about. When I say something about tribes, people don't understand what I'm saying. They don't understand what I'm saying. I'm saying you get in where you fit in, find your people, and make it work for you. You work with people that want to work with you. Stop always going against the grain. Sometimes go with the wind. Run with your people, you know, be with the people. Power to the people. So, you know, you think about even Western music or country music, for example, Hank Williams Sr., behind every great white man is a black man that he learned and stole from. You know, Hank Williams Sr., who is considered the king of country music, his master teacher was a black man named Rufus Payne. Rufus Payne was hired by Hank Williams Sr.'s mom to teach him how to sing and play the guitar. Now, I love listening to Hank Williams Sr.'s music. If you listen to his music, it sounds very African. The banjo, of course, is an African instrument. Look how it's made. It's a drum with strings. Come on now. Get with me, people. Love it. Matter of fact, Hank Williams Sr. during his lifetime acknowledged that his teacher was Rufus Payne. Rufus Payne is buried outside of Montgomery. The Grand Ole Opry with Hank Williams Jr., they dedicated a memorial to Rufus Payne in a cemetery where he's buried in honor of his contribution to country music. Some of the earliest stars of the Grand Ole Opry, like D4 Bailey, were black people. You know, look at the Kentucky Derby. The winningest jock of all time is Isaac Murphy. He's a black man. It makes you think about those black lawn jockeys in a different way, don't it? You know, you gotta understand, you know, you look at the movie Hidden Figures, how many other hidden figures are there in American history as it relates to black people? Or in world history as it relates to black people? There are many hidden figures. But, you know, getting back all this, like Charleston is a white daddy town, just like Memphis is a white daddy town. Memphis could be a great town, but you got a small town mentality. Memphis is the biggest city on the Mississippi River. You know, it's bigger than New Orleans, bigger than St. Louis in terms of population, bigger than Nashville, bigger than Atlanta in terms of population. Got all this history. There's like a vortex of this creativity coming out of Memphis. But, you know, Memphis has never been what it should have been, especially since almost 50 years, you know, 49 years since the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But you look at some place like, you know, 60 years ago, Memphis was right up there with Dallas and Atlanta. You know, Dallas had President Kennedy get killed, but look at Dallas now versus look at Memphis. So, I mean, like, Memphis is the corporate headquarters for FedEx and AutoZone. The Holiday Inn was created in Memphis. The first modern supermarket, Piggly Wiggly, premiered in Memphis, September 1916. Clarence Saunders, whose home is now the Pink Palace Museum in Memphis. So I can say just like with Charleston, a lot of history there. Like when the flag came down, the Confederate flag came down last year in South Carolina. It came down on the birthday of one of their greatest citizens, Mary McLeod Bethune. Mary McLeod Bethune, the person who founded Bethune-Cookman College with just basically less than $2 in the bank. The person who was the longest serving president of College of Wilson's Association, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALH. She was the Negro Whisperer for presidents such as Truman and Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt. Very influential sister. We can learn a lot from her blueprint, but she came out of South Carolina. And on her birthday, July 10th, they took down their flag. They Confederate flag from the state capitol, but no mainstream fake news people made mention of that. That's why it's important to have alternative black media so we can talk about this history as well with contemporary and current events and issues. So that's very important to talk about. Like I said, South Carolina has produced its shares of black revolutionaries. I don't want to say I'm just down in black folks in South Carolina, but I have met a lot of scaredy black folks, Mr. Charlie, Boss Charlie black folks in South Carolina. But a lot of revolutionaries, like I said, Mary McLeod Bethune. You look at Robert Smalls, the politician and black leader. You look at even somebody like Satima Clark, Sister Satima Clark, one of the elders, one of the key sisters organizers in the 20th century civil rights movement. You look at somebody like Harlem Godfather Bumpy Johnson is actually from Charleston. He had to leave Charleston because he had such a temper. He couldn't tolerate white folks that well, and he's from Charleston. So they had to send him up to New York City, and the rest is history. But you got these type of people, Demarc Vesey, they come out of this place. But yet, there's a fear because if you go down there, much of the tourism is dependent on black history and culture. But black folks, I doubt black folks really control 1% of those tourism dollars. Because tourism is booming in Charleston off of black folks' backs. But black folks don't control how they, we control 1% of what's going on in terms of creating revenue, generating revenue down there for us and by us, you know. But anyway, I think I said enough about Dylann Roof, but know that Dylann Roof, where he was caught at, once again, ladies and gentlemen, scholars and laymen, he was caught in Shelby, North Carolina. And who's the birthplace? Whose birthplace is that? Thomas Dixon Jr., the guy who wrote The Klansman, which led to the movie Birth of a Nation. And also, Thomas Dixon Jr., he was a very prominent preacher up in New York, so much so that he helped, Theodore Roosevelt, before he became president, he helped him run for the governor of New York. And also he was friends with none other than John D. Rockefeller, at one time the wealthiest person in America and the world. John D. Rockefeller, was a good friend of Thomas Dixon Jr., as well as Theodore Roosevelt. So And also, family, don't forget that when Dylann Roof committed those crimes against humanity, H-U-E, humanity, that the federal government sent the victim's family $29 million within 48 hours of it happening. You can look this up. It's all online in news articles. The federal government, the U.S. government, sent the victim's family, the 9 people who were cut down in Mother Emanuel, sent them $29 million within 48 hours. What are y'all thoughts about that? What does that mean? That is very fascinating, is it not? You know, he was tried as I guess, committed hate crimes, and he did get a federal punishment sentence of death. So it's interesting that the federal government intervened and was able to fast track that money that fast. You know, something that, you know, I hope that some of y'all will think about, because I actually went to Charleston around the 4th of July, on the 4th of July of 2015, for my grandma, who is now deceased. She passed away last year, birthday, because my great uncle is James French Sr. He actually owns and founded the oldest black-owned newspaper in the state of South Carolina, known as the Charleston Chronicle. A lot of great stuff from a black point of view. Y'all should support it. So you know that's in the blood, that what I do, I help people that came before me that laid the foundation. So I actually went to Mother Emanuel, A.m.e. on 4th of July, and I got the videos in my YouTube channel to verify that I did go there to interview people, both black and white, both natives to the state as also visitors, because it was 4th of July, what their thoughts was about what happened just weeks earlier. And also, I told many people about the fact that the federal government gave the victim's family $29 million. It blew their mind. Even a lot of folks in the state did not know about that. That's why it's so important to do your own research and to share what you know with people, because you got to amplify, because each one teach one. So, yeah. So, I mean, this is why I do what I do. And I love my people, and I love to serve. And also, people are talking about nothing happens in a vacuum. Look up on John Wilkes Booth. I mentioned John Wilkes Booth. Look up the Knights of the Golden Circle. That's like the Southern Fried Illuminati. That's the Confederacy version of the Illuminati, the Knights of the Golden Circle. A lot of interesting information in that. John Wilkes Booth is actually present in a photo at Abraham Lincoln's second inauguration. You can find this photo online. And also, John Wilkes Booth was present at the execution of John Brown. He was present during that execution back in December 1859. So who is this John Wilkes Booth character? He was like one of America's most famous actors. But like I said, he was not a lone wolf. He was very well connected. So just follow the dots and, you know, figure it out, you know. But yeah, look up Knights of the Golden Circle. Some interesting stuff behind that. Because the Confederacy not only wanted to you know, take over the South, you know, have sovereignty for the South, but they actually wanted to expand the Confederacy all the way to the end of South America. They wanted the whole South Central America under their control. Fascinating stuff. I'll give a shout out to my uncle's paper, Uncle Frenchie. This is the Charleston Chronicle. This is the oldest black-owned newspaper in the state of South Carolina. My Uncle Frenchie founded this paper over 40 years ago. He is 90 years young. He is well respected in the South Carolina community. He actually has a street named in his honor. I'm just trying to get y'all to recognize my pedigree. I actually met this brother on his 87th birthday back in October 7th of 2013. Check out some of his videos on my YouTube channel. He has led an interesting life. He grew up with Charlie Parker in Kansas City. Charlie Parker actually played at his brother's clubs and restaurants and whatnot in Kansas City. He has traveled the world. He was a prisoner of war under Castro. Actually was a guest of honor for Castro. He has some interesting stories about that. And also he was a hero of a town in Cuba that had a bullfight in his honor. He went clubbing with Ava Gardner, excuse me, and Bricktop, the famous club owner Ida Bricktop Smith from the Harlem Renaissance days. Went clubbing with them in Rome. Had a spaghetti dinner with Lucky Luciano down in Naples back in the 40s. This is an extraordinary man, you know, just led a very interesting life. But this is what they did on the Emmanuel 9, a special they did about our fallen brothers and sisters. This is why it's so important to support black media, because we got to tell our story from our perspective. So with that said, I also want to make note as well that South Carolina, I talked about Preston Brooks beating the hell out of Charles Sumner, literally to an inch of his life. But also, you know, South Carolina gave us Representative Joe Wilson, who's currently in Congress, I believe. He was the guy that told Obama before a national and international audience, televised, you lied about the Obamacare situation. So Joe Wilson, representative from South Carolina, following that time-honored tradition of doing what they do best, you know. And also, Dylann Roof was one of his constituents of his district. He's over the 2nd District in South Carolina, Representative Joe Wilson, United States Representative Joe Wilson, and one of his constituents was Dylann Roof. Dylann Storm Roof, I believe. His middle name is Storm. Sound like Storm Front. You know, y'all know what that is. But anyway, that was something I wanted to point out as well. And this is why it's so important that we, as black people, learn how to research this information for ourselves and also disseminate it to our people so we can be better informed. Like what the great Ida B. Wells Barnett, a pioneer journalist in her own right, once said, to paraphrase her, the people must know before they can act, and there is no greater educator than the press. You know, right now, but the situation with the press is kind of depressing if you look at it from a mainstream media fake news point of view. But I want to encourage all you young people out there in social media land, keep on sharing those stories that won't get heard a lot of times through the traditional venues. Amplify. Like my friend and mentor, the late great Judge A.M.e. Bailey, one of the founders of the Civil Rights Museum, civil rights activist, a legend in his own right. Amplify, amplify, amplify. Run, amplify, amplify, amplify. So keep on amplifying, everybody. I guess that's it for now. It's interesting. I want to point this out as well too. I know I read about Dylann Roof. His mom had a heart attack during the court trial. And when I read about that, I was thinking about, you know, Dick Gregory, why he said he didn't mess with white women, because he was afraid of what came out of her. You know, the Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein all had a white mama. And so did Dylann Roof. So, something to think about. Well, anyway, family, God bless y'all. If you like what you heard, please spread the word from Mr. Heard. Please send folks to this channel, to subscribe. Also, feel free to donate to the cause, because knowledge is the currency of the universe. In the words of the great Duke Ellington, we love you madly. Keep producing and pushing. I'm out, family. One love.